extremely nervous about having this child. All the tests that we have to do, the fear that he'll come out and he won't be able to breathe, or there'll be something that's happened from the Lyme infection that we don't know about. It is very, very scary.
Sent us sample. Here.
Oh my God!
I'm watching to get it.
Can you believe it now?
I would like to welcome you to John F. Kennedy International Airport, New York. The local time here in New York is 9:30 a.m.
Well, here we are in East Hampton, New York, a place I probably never would have seen if I hadn't gotten Lyme disease. I've come here all the way from California to see one of the top Lyme specialists in the world. And I've been coming here for the last 4 years. Are you nervous riding with me? You should be. As a park ranger before Lyme, I was a highly competent person. What Lyme did to me is it sort of removed my ability to multitask. You know, I can sort of do one thing at a time if I really focus on it. See, we're not where we should be right now. Do you notice this? That's a really bad sign. Frustrating, you know. It's frustrating to be this far down the road. Now it's been almost 8 years, and to still be not back to normal.
When did you start the combination therapy? Last year, right?
Yeah, I've been on it for a year.
Are you still improving, or have you hit a plateau?
You know, the truth is, I've hit a plateau.
How much antibiotic is enough? How many symptoms that are still present reflect an active ongoing infection versus just damage that's going to be there forever? Somehow the spirochete can learn to live within the body and not be killed. It can hide from the immune system, it can hide from the antibiotics, and both at the same time. And there are patients who sometimes are on open-ended years of therapy because of this very problem.
We have not been able to demonstrate the persistence of the bacteria. So to treat for months and months is really based on guesswork, on conjecture, and not based on any scientific data.
If I had not been able to find doctors who would soak me in antibiotics for years, you wouldn't be talking to the guy that you're talking to right now. The folk myth is somehow that antibiotics are bad for you. I just have to say they're certainly not bad for you if you've got a fatal infection.
This disease has taken over my whole life.
It's been a horrible journey.
Every day driving home, I would think of driving a car off the road or something like that.
I said to my mom, you know, it would be okay with me if I didn't wake up this time.
I said, God, take me home tonight. It was not even a request, it was a demand.
What's gonna happen to me? What's gonna happen to me? I don't want to die.
I am scared. I'm very sad because I don't know what to do.
I'm going downhill, gradually down, 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 down.
The worst part is knowing that you're just not a normal person.
Chronic Lyme disease.
It's kind of the disease du jour. There's no evidence that I can find to support the concept that there is a chronic Borrelia infection after treatment. That kind of situation has been referred to as post-Lyme syndrome or post-Lyme symptoms. Those symptoms may be due to the aches and pains of kind of daily living.
The Infectious Diseases Society of America just published their Lyme disease diagnosis and treatment guidelines, and it's been a huge disaster for the Lyme disease community. They say that Lyme is easy to treat and easy to cure. They're saying that 2 weeks typically will cure most cases of Lyme, and they say that chronic Lyme doesn't exist. If people have symptoms beyond 1 2 to 4 week dose of antibiotics, they have something else, and they send them to a psychiatrist or give them some pain meds or some steroids and send them away.
If you look at the new IDSA guidelines, it's a very threatening document. It's very restrictive. So it almost was designed with a purpose in mind to restrict the treatment of Lyme.
A handful of people are pretty much the gatekeepers for information about this disease. Out of 400 references that they posted at the back of the guidelines, half of them were based on articles that the panelists or people in their labs had actually written. So it's not like they went through and looked at the whole body of Lyme research to come up with the best recommendations. They looked at a small group of articles, about half of which were written by themselves.
These guidelines are based on the best scientific evidence that from more than 25 years of study.
It completely ignores a worldwide body of literature that is in contradiction to what they're saying.
We're not going to ignore good science, but the science isn't there.
We had begun deliberations, and we were going to go over the late and chronic stage. We never got to discuss late and chronic Lyme disease. There seemed to be pressure from the IDSA to put out something, even though we couldn't agree. So what happened was, Dr. Wormser did take over the chairmanship on the guidelines for Lyme disease, and we never met again. We just said, here are the guidelines, and you can sign them and agree or not.
They're written in almost legalese terms, like this can be a document used in court cases, maybe against physicians, or maybe for insurance companies to justify cutting off treatment to their patients because these are the guidelines.
Really, those guidelines reflected the idea of 1 or 2 people, but they've been misused by insurance companies who don't want to pay for treatments because that particular guideline says we don't know if chronic Lyme disease exists.
Well, the insurance company has refused to pay $10,000 worth of bills having to do with my trips to see Dr. Burscano. They have now required me to see another doctor. This particular doctor apparently is a fellow who works mostly for the insurance company. What he'll do will be to cite the IDSA position that there's no such thing as chronic Lyme disease to support a conclusion that the insurance company's already made about me. They don't want to pay.
Rather than make the assumption that 2 to 4 weeks of antibiotics is enough, where did anybody get that idea from in infectious disease? Tuberculosis is not treated in 2 to 4 weeks. Hepatitis, a year to treat that? HIV, indefinitely? So we're not talking about new concepts. We're talking about concepts that have not been, for whatever reason, applied.
doctor's controversial diagnosis and treatment of Lyme disease with powerful intravenous drugs could very well cost him his medical license.
The evidence will show that Dr. Jimsek believed the IDSA guidelines to be flawed, to be wrong.
I respect the IDSA tremendously. I belong to the IDSA. The Lyme philosophy is run by about 12 people who have been doing the same 12 people for the last 15 years, and they haven't really changed anything. I tried to influence the IDSA through a series of letters with the president and the chairman of the guidelines committee. We pleaded with them to open up the process about Lyme guidelines.
He's been working really hard for the last year to try and get the IDSA board to listen to his suggestions for the treatment of chronic Lyme. And now he's before a medical board review, and it makes you wonder, you know, is this retaliation?
Furthermore, for each of these patients, Dr. Jimsek prescribed a course of not oral, but intravenous antibiotics to be administered to the patients for months on end.
Long-term antibiotics provide no additional benefit. And it's not that this is safe. There are many complications to long-term antibiotic therapy.
I was a patient of his for 7.5 years, diagnosed with Lyme's disease, wholeheartedly believed him, and never had Lyme's disease.
My wife did not sign up to be a test subject. She was told she could be cured for the disease that she supposedly had.
3 years ago, you wouldn't have thought she'd live another 2 months. He literally saved her life, no question about it.
If I hadn't seen Dr. Jimsek, if he wasn't available, I don't know that I'd be here talking to you.
If Dr. Jimsek doesn't get cleared, there's a message that's going to be sent to the other doctors in North Carolina that it's not safe to take a Lyme patient on and treat them. We can't have that happen. I don't know what we would do.
It is difficult for doctors who want to stand up and help these patients because it is a political disease and an economic disease as much as it is a bacterial-borne infection.
My office was stormed by the Board of Nurse Examiners.
I got a letter around 2000 saying that I was a subject of an investigation.
A complaint went in from a physician to the Virginia Board of Medicine stating that I was following unusual practices in treating Lyme disease patients.
Here we are in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're on day 2 of the Jimsek trial.
Oh, we're going.
Dr. Jimsek's license is suspended for 1 year, stayed, and the conditions to be determined. That concludes the hearing in this matter.
A Charlotte doctor must surrender his medical license for the way he treats Lyme disease. Less than an hour ago, the state medical board ruled that Dr. Joseph Jimsek acted inappropriately when treating some patients. The board suspended his license for 1 year.
I thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Medical boards don't act on their own. They need a complaint to initiate an investigation. And we've been told by the medical boards that the great majority of complaints don't come from doctors or patients, but they come from insurance companies trying to get rid of doctors who cost them a lot of money.
There has been for many years a controversy within the medical community about how best to diagnose and treat Lyme disease. We allege that Dr. Jones prescribed an antibiotic to a patient he did not know and had never examined.
As a mom, my kids were sick. I left no stone unturned. I finally found somebody that recognized what their problem might be. It was treated, in my opinion, appropriately, and my kids are better now because of it.
This whole thing is kind of ridiculous, I think. It was really nothing more than a witch hunt on behalf of my ex-husband. He called me and he said he was going to lodge a complaint against every doctor that I took the children to unless I agreed not to bill him for half of the medical care.
How could my dad have done this? He used to go, "You don't have Lyme disease. Dr. Jones is just making it up so he can get money." And I thought, you know what? No, he isn't, because I was always sick, and then when he told me and my brother and my family that we had Lyme disease and we got treated for Lyme disease, we got so much better.
Did you testify contrary to Dr. Jones's opinion in a criminal case in the last several years?
Yes.
Did you ever call him a nut in public?
Patients develop physical complaints, but it's got a psychological basis.
Dr. Jones is the best pediatric Lyme doctor in the United States. So the implications for me is that if my son's Lyme comes back, or if we contract it again, then you'll be taking away the one person that can truly help us. What kind of response would you get if this was a kid with cancer? Everybody and their mother would say that this is inhumane.
Dr. Jones is not the heart of the problem. I think the opposition, they're going to use him as an example if they can, perhaps to frighten other doctors so that they won't want to get involved in care.
I was reviewed by the investigators for 4 years.
As long as I'm not too well known, it's okay to do what I do, but if I would become very well known or very outspoken, I think that I would probably lose my medical license.
It got to the point where I would tell people, don't tell the office you're coming in because of Lyme.
Just leave us alone. Let's do our work. If you don't want to treat that stuff, that's fine. But you can't make it go away. It's not going away.
Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, thank you for this meal, and help it nourish our bodies and help us advance your kingdom. And just let the truth prevail from it, Dr. Jones, and help him help others. In Jesus' name, Christ, amen.
We're here today to remember Brett Paul,
Doris Grade,
Robert Baird,
Jerry Teitelbaum Fossing.
I think it really points out how dangerous this illness is. We're the heartland of the nation, and our people are dying here from Lyme disease.
My son was 31 years old, and he died from Lyme disease because no one would treat him.
I keep wondering what else I could have done. Should I have taken her to Europe? Should I have taken her somewhere where somebody would have done something? But we don't seem to care in this country. They just didn't try to help. When we tried to get medication for her, it was almost impossible because the medical profession is afraid to give medication for this.
If I was asked whether Lyme disease could be fatal, I would say not in my experience and not suggested by any of the existing literature.
My husband died 2 months ago of Lyme disease. It's specifically on his death certificate.
By the time that they figure out, it's too late.
The last words my daughter spoke to me, her last words just, "Mommy, they're going to kill me," and they did.
I am one of the many that will speak for her now. She shouldn't have had to die.
I'm angry at the fact that there's nobody there to help me. I'm angry at the fact that this disease is being ignored. I'm angry at the fact that there's a Hippocratic oath out there that these doctors are supposed to heal me, and they ignored me. And they put a price on my life which was nothing. Nobody was there to help me. And instead they blamed it on me by saying it was all in my head.
We were having dinner, just, watching TV, and
she started having a reaction. It's a mild seizure at first, and it progressively got worse. She was having a problem breathing, and then stopped breathing altogether. The first doctor that we met with, first statement was, Lyme doesn't do this, that's not what you have. Three of the doctors all asked if she's seeing a psychiatrist because they all just assumed it was in her head.
My body had been losing ability for a long time. Cognitive function, physical ability to do things, and I'd been keeping it down, you know, working around it, adjusting my life. So, you know what? I don't want to hear it. And I'm sorry, but I have been dealing with it, and now we have been dealing with it. That's 10 years. That's a long time to be patient.
I mean, it's frustrating to hear doctor after doctor after doctor say either A, Lyme doesn't exist, or Lyme doesn't do this, or, you know, well, what you're experiencing isn't Lyme. It's almost like they've been trained or programmed that this is what they're supposed to say.
It's really madness. You know, there's something wrong. I don't hear it in any other disease, never heard it in my life. So there's something funny. I don't know what that something funny is.
Attorney General Blumenthal of Connecticut has taken the historic move of starting an investigation into the panel members who wrote the Infectious Diseases Society of America Lyme treatment guidelines. He believes that they have conflicts that may be corrupting their advice.
Our investigation concerns whether the antitrust laws have been violated, purposefully or not, by these guidelines. They may restrict consumer choice with tremendous implications, not only for patient care, but also the economics of insurance coverage.
Ideally, authors of medical guidelines should have no financial conflicts when they make their recommendations. But if you look at the current IDSA guidelines authors, 6 of 14 of them or their universities hold patents associated with Lyme disease or its co-infections. 4 of the 14 have received funding from Lyme or co-infection test kit manufacturers. 4 have been paid by insurance companies to write Lyme policy guidelines or serve as consultants in legal cases. And 9 of the 14 authors or their universities have received money from Lyme disease vaccine manufacturers.
The fact that 9 out of 14 authors have a direct conflict of interest with somebody who's involved in manufacturing products for any aspect of the disease is completely outrageous. The Infectious Disease Society of America should establish a hard and fast rule that the people who serve on guideline writing committees not have any ties to any manufacturer that has a stake in the outcome of those guidelines. Period. End of story.
There are a lot of people in the academic community, I think, that know these people are wrong, but no one will speak up. So, you know, at what point will people say the emperor has no clothes? You know, when will the voice of the people finally reach a level where the truth will come out. I mean, I think the truth will eventually come out, but how many more people are going to suffer before the truth comes out?
As citizens, we ought to be astonished and alarmed.
Every year, there's thousands and thousands of people suffering.
This is a total disgrace. Right to the IDSA. Chronic Lyme disease exists.
Good afternoon, everybody. Continuing hearings.